Lloyd Vance covers the NFL, contributing writer for NFL Network. Kind enough to join us on a Friday. How you been, pal?
Hey, Q, how you doing, man?
I'm doing well. Did you fall asleep early from watching the games yesterday?
No, we enjoyed the food and the football, you know. The first game was the most enjoyable. You have to think the Lions were trying to compete there, trying to come back, but that Vikings team is starting to look like they're a serious contender. Unfortunately, the other two games were kind of a snoozer, particularly late in the evening. I was hoping that the Redskins and the Giants would put on a better effort.
Yeah, well, we kind of know what's come to expect of those two teams. Yeah, you mentioned Minnesota, and again, Case yesterday making throws. You saw the pressure up the middle. He was delivering the football, very accurate. We always talk about, look, and they make the move for the running back. They lose the running back. They lose the starting quarterback. Zimmer just needs to come out and just say, look, he's the quarterback going forward. You have, and to be fair, too, you put him in serious consideration for MVP. That's how well he's playing.
Yeah, they really are just playing at a high level, and they're finding ways to win it. And it's all built off of that defense that is just very stout. And Xavier Rhodes and the rest of those guys in that defensive secondary, they can shut anybody down. And you're right, Case Keenum, a lot of people are going to call him a game manager, what have you, but he's making those big throws when the game is on the line, particularly Adam Thielen. They seem to have a very strong connection. I like what Rudolph's doing at the tight end position. And then you're seeing Latavius Murray kind of take over that lead back role. So this is a team that's going to be there. They're going to be able to compete right now on a 7-game winning streak. And they're running through the best teams in the NFC right now. They went through the Rams. Now they beat the Lions. And they're going to have their opportunity next week to play at Atlanta, which should be a game that's another playoff-type game.
And listen, I know this will probably – I'm not comparing the two. I'm not. But this reminds me a little bit because you can't put the stats won't go up to par. That you can't match them. But Kurt Warner came out of nowhere, right? I'm not comparing the two. But he fit that system with those playmakers on that turf, that speed, right place, right time. And you're seeing this kid. You're seeing Case play. Here's a journeyman quarterback. His career high in touchdowns was 9. He already has 14. He's only got 5 interceptions. He's probably going to have 20. Maybe 23 touchdowns when it's all said and done, a couple interceptions, but they keep winning, and winning. So it's like sometimes in the NFL, you get a guy that maybe peaks 28, 29. To some extent, it almost reminds me a little bit of Warner. I know it's apples and oranges, but the guy kind of came out of nowhere.
He totally did. And I remember when he was with the Houston Texans, I was saying, how is this guy starting that?
Yes, I remember. Yeah.
Totally inept. And he's turned his career around. I know he didn't have a lot of coaching with the Rams last year, but he's come to Minnesota. And let's not forget Pat Shermer, a guy who I covered with the Eagles. He's really done a great job with him in play design and building this offense around him. And he can make a lot of the throws. Arm is very strong. A guy I kind of was looking at, think about Rich Gannon.
Yep.
Rich Gannon kind of bounced around the NFL for a long time, found a home with the Raiders.
Yep.
And then he really took that team to the Super Bowl. So it could be that type of situation. You're correct. I don't think it'd be wise to put Teddy Bridgewater in there. I was a fan of his coming out of Louisville early in his career. But Keenum's playing at a high level, and you just don't want to disrupt this train right now.
When you look at what the Cowboys are going through, and the quarterback obviously is struggling mightily, they don't have a ground game. You lose a tackle. The secondary got lit up again. This is kind of – I don't want to say the Cowboys that I expected, but it's almost as though one dimension. You take Elliott away from that team, he is the MVP of that team. I mean, you're taking your best offensive weapon off the field. So there's no threat of there's no semblance of a ground game. There's no threat of showing a ground game. There's no threat of being creative on second and short because no one has to worry about keying on one specific player. With all that being said, are we starting to see Prescott get a little exposed here, and maybe we were too quick to suddenly anoint him the second coming after last year when they were 13-3?
Well, the thing we're seeing now, Q, with Dak Prescott and the Cowboys, it's not so easy, and there's adversity in the National Football League. Last year, the play action was working so well. Des Bryant looked like his young self getting open, and even Witten seemed to be a step faster. So everything is slowing down for these players. And the thing is, you're right, Ezekiel Elliott is their main cog in that offense. And Dak, he's not seeing those open looks, and receivers are not getting the separation. So they totally seem to be falling apart. I just kept seeing those shots of Jerry Jones in the skybox just shaking his head. Very mean, very miserable, thinking about Roger Goodell and how he blew up the season with the suspension. But it happened, and they really should have done a better job in terms of planning for the suspension and how to build a team without that Ezekiel right now. So, they're going to have to turn this thing around. I just don't know if they're going to be able to. They played hard for one half against the Philadelphia Eagles, but yesterday, once they got down, they were really down. They're playing Washington next week, and then they're at the Giants, so maybe they can make some noise, but I think they're headed for a 7-9 type of season.
Yeah, I tend to agree. And you look at conversely with the Chargers now, all of a sudden they've woken up. Can you imagine if they were able to close a couple of those games early on? Their record could easily be 7-4, 8-3, and they can be leading the AFC West. It just seems as though the last several years they had those heartbreaking losses. They make a late run. I mean, it's got to be frustrating if you're a Chargers fan because you look at them on the surface. They got a great quarterback. They have talent. But they just find a way to lose a couple of these early games. But right now, they put themselves right back in the thick of things in the AFC West.
They have, and they were the last team to go 0-4 and then make the playoffs. So, I know that was a while ago, but this team has a lot of fight within them. You see Philip Rivers really leading them. They have the running game with Melvin Gordon, and I really like that defense built around Joey Bosa and Ingram. They can attack you from all angles. And let's face it, in the AFC this year, the AFC is kind of wide open because you have the Bills who are kind of reeling, and they're at 5-5, and they're kind of holding down that last spot. But the Chargers, as their name says, they are hard charging right now. So I see them fighting it out, and maybe the Ravens jumping in for that last spot as well. So it's going to be a fight to the finish.
We'll get to the Bills in a second, but just looking at the Chargers, they got the Browns, the Redskins, the Chiefs, the Jets, and the Raiders. They can win 3 of those games. That gets you to 8-8, and that could be enough for a wild card. You mentioned the Bills now. How shocked were you that McDermott out of nowhere decides, okay, we'll go with a fourth or fifth round draft pick in Peterman? And how surprised were you that he struggled so bad that the head coach kept him out there? I mean, pick after pick. That's a horrible spot for that kid.
Oh, it was for both of them. And you could see Sean McDermott, he was kind of shaking his head on his own decision. I don't know if Peterman showed him a spark in practice or that was a discipline issue with Tyrod Taylor, who was not following the playbook, whatever. But when I look at the two of them, the talent differential is just so incredible. And Peterman was totally lost, 5 interceptions in one half, and we haven't seen that in the NFL in forever. So, he had to go back to him. I know McDermott swallowed his pride, and he's going to try to give it a go against the KC Chiefs, who are also kind of reeling, and it's a desperation bowl for both teams.
Lloyd, that's a fireable offense. I mean, come on. I mean, honestly, this is a team that's right there in the playoffs, and then you make that type of change, and now you're going to go back to the original starter?
Yeah, the Pagula family who owns that team, very entrenched in Buffalo. They saved them from moving. They want to win, and let's not forget this team has not made the playoffs since 1999, so that's really what made you shake your head with the AFC so wide open in terms of they could get that wild card spot. I know Sean has a 5-year contract or something like that and wants to build towards the future, maybe look towards the draft and get one of those young quarterbacks there. But you have to win now in the NFL, and nothing's guaranteed for tomorrow. So that was a very bad decision. Hopefully they'll learn from that, hold the team together, because there were a couple players on that team like Shady McCoy that were kind of outspoken saying, what are you doing here? And they can close ranks and kind of give a good effort against the Chiefs.
Last one before I let you get out of here, and again, a couple of minutes with Lloyd Vance, joins us throughout the course of the NFL season, covers the NFL, contributing editor and writer for the NFL Network. Good follow on Twitter as well. You look at the Jacksonville Jags, 7-3, and if you really take a deeper look into what they've been able to do, shut out the Colts, give up 7 against the Bengals, give up 17 against the Chargers, only allow 7 against the Browns, even though it was a kind of a tough game late. They had to come up with a couple big defensive plays. I know people are still not sold on the quarterback, but the way this defense is playing, you don't have to be 100% on board with the quarterback. And they've got a couple games coming up, the Colts, the Texans, the 49ers, the Titans. This is a team that can win 10, 11 games. How serious do you take Jacksonville based on the way their defense has played this year?
You got to take them seriously. And it reminded me a lot of a couple of those Ravens teams that won back in the day that really didn't have that great quarterback, but that defense was just carrying them. And the Jaguars have not made the playoffs since 2007, so this is their chance. And we know Bortles is just going to make a couple throws here and there, but that defense that their former coach built is ready to roll, and they can go against anybody to compete. They bring over Calais Campbell, who's having a career year. So as you were saying, you know, the schedule is very favorable for them. I think this team is very dangerous, and they're a team you don't want to see in the playoffs. I don't know if they're ready to beat the Patriots or the Steelers in that type of situation. I know they beat the Steelers in regular season, but in playoffs it would be a lot different. But I think they could get in and win a playoff game.
Did you get up early for Black Friday shopping?
You know.
Or you know better.
I let my wife do most of the shopping. I went out one year with her to get a TV, and it was just madness.
Oh, so you gave her the credit card and said, come back in about 10 hours. Right?
There you go, man.
Yeah,
and I'll be shaking my head about 30 days.
Well, I saw, you know, it's so funny. I actually got an offer in the mail the other day for a card, and it said 0% interest until January 1st, 2018. I got it like 2 weeks ago. I'm like, are you kidding me? Yeah, you know what? The Black Friday days of getting up early to go save $75. Guess what? No, thank you. I'll pass, my friend. Listen, hope you had a good Thanksgiving. Enjoy the games this week. We'll talk next week. Always appreciate you popping on, pal.
All right, thanks for having me on.
All right, you got it. Lloyd Vance, always good to catch up with him.